Welcome to Books with Noah, a podcast where I talk with my friends about their favorite books. Welcome back to Books with Noah. Today I'm here with Nick. This is Nick's third appearance on Books with Noah. And Nick is a former engineer who quit his fancy job to focus on social and emotional literacy. Nick, welcome back.
Thanks, Noah. It's really great to be here.
Today we are talking about Rosamund and Benjamin Zander's book, The Art of Possibility. This book focuses on transforming our professional and personal lives by the way we think about ourselves and others. So, Nick, you just told me this book is about 20 years old. I don't know how I didn't hear about it, but I found it to be incredibly transformational. And we should say, I guess, open up by discussing who Benjamin Zander is. He was the conductor of, I believe it's the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra, and they use these ideas of being in an orchestra, being a musician, to guide you through this process of transformation, to teach certain specific skills and certain what they call practices that led them to really become the people who they wanted to be. So with that being said, Nick, who is this book for?
Yeah, I completely agree with what you said. I guess I'd like to add that the people who find this book transformational, like myself, I love this book, and I'm also just, it seems like it's not a very well-known book, and I'm glad that I stumbled upon it. I think the people who it's for are maybe stuck in some mindset. Maybe one way to describe it is living with some self-limiting beliefs. And I think the main theme that continued throughout this book for me was unlocking those, just kind of realizing that I was holding myself hostage with some idea of some constraint that I thought I had to live by. And just with the very first chapter, which is called Everything is Made Up, I was like, okay, I know what this book is going to be about. I'm starting to get that feeling like it's all made up. So why don't we make up something that's going to be helpful for us?
Right. And these, made up beliefs, you don't realize how much of them you have until you hear some examples and you're like, oh crap, that's totally me. And I didn't realize it. So yeah, along that line, do you play an instrument, Nick? Did you play an instrument as a kid?
I did as a kid, yeah. I played piano for about 3 or 4 years. And then I think around the age of 7 or 8, I convinced my parents to let me start playing the drums. And so I as well, I listened to the Audible version of this book, and I was so grateful for the interludes and examples with music. It was so powerful to hear about the orchestra life and life on the road and being a professional musician and professional conductor. And just to hear some music and have these breaks in between the text and the ideas, just to relax into some sound. Yeah. And I know that you're have a long history of being a musician, and music's played a very important role to you. Tell me about how did you find those parts of the book?
I loved it, and I'll say, you don't have to be a musician or have anything to do with classical music to get a lot out of this book. But if you are a musician, if you've ever played in an orchestra, it makes it probably even 10 times more impactful, because it's just such exactly what they're saying when they give these examples of, being second violinist, right? And with the examples. So it was impactful. But yeah, I've been playing cello since I was 9, pretty continuously, and coronavirus has been really sad for that, because I miss playing my instrument with other people and making music. It's a way I express my humanity and connect with others, and looking forward to being able to rejoin that. So I would like to talk for a second about what he calls the third practice, which is giving an A. And Benjamin explains how he was teaching in the conservatory, and they have this course that is just for, I guess, the top students that are handpicked. and they're told that they have to give 30% A's, 30% B's, and 30% C's, or something like that. And he's asking himself, like, what is the point of a grade? It goes back to it's all made up. Is the whole point of this to just corral, students into high performing and not as well performing? Or is it to teach people, develop them, help them discover themselves? And so he said that if we don't give grades, then nobody's going to show up to class. So that doesn't help, right? So what are we going to do? So they say, I'm going to give everybody an A, and they're going to have to write themselves a letter in May, dated in May, to their current selves, it's to the professor. Is that right?
Yeah. Dear Professor Zander.
Yeah, dear professor, I earned my A by doing this. These are the ways that I transformed into the person I wanted to be, and this is why I earned the A in your course, and this is how I imagine. But they had to use all specific present tense language. There was no "I want" or "I will become." It was, it allowed them to fully immerse themselves into this future version of themselves and let them realize that they could achieve that. And I did a similar essay that I wrote to myself, a letter, and it was amazingly transformational for me. It brought me to tears. It made me realize, who I wanted to be, that I could get there, and it really created this compassion that I didn't have for myself. And I think that's a very common thread in musicians. There's a lot of achievement-oriented competition, whether you won a competition, where you sit, how good you are, how many people you beat for an audition. There's just all of this, in my opinion, toxic aspects. And instead, you're not focusing on yourself, the things that you can do great, and the art kind of gets pushed back. So with all of these things, I was blown away.
Yeah, in the introduction, Rosamund, the other author, mentions that HBR, Harvard Business Review, approached her and Zander, Mr. Zander, about this book. And they said they wanted something that would help bring the arts and emotion to the business world of values and industry and measurement. And the second chapter is all about that we live in this world of measurement, that we live in this world that we're measured by our status and our performance. And then the chapter follow on, the one that you mentioned of giving an A, just, it helps to break that down. It helps to say, it's possible that you can design how you're measured against, and that assume that you've already earned your A, assume that you've already earned it. Well, why? Yeah, I'd love to hear. So why was that why did you feel that was so powerful for you?
So many reasons, but specifically when he talks about giving an A, he talks about giving an A to everyone in your life, right? Like, you meet somebody new, or your family member, how they're going to respond to you, and maybe you already have, you either have the judgment going, or you're not open to the full possibilities. And so just growing up and giving people the respect and the possibility that they are better than whatever, kind of hole you're trying to put them in. That, I was like, that is the way I need to be interacting with everybody. And that is the way I need to be treating myself. And
yeah, I think you really said it, Noah. Treating yourself that way, the compassion, and just the acknowledgement and recognition that you're enough. If you earned an A, that means you're enough. So I think it really helps for me in ways that, there's a lot of times I don't feel like I'm enough, and I'm feeling shame about my life or my choices or where I am. And just to have that release, or that recognition, and allow myself the relief is what I'm trying to say, of allowing myself to be enough and have earned that A. For me, another powerful chapter was chapter 6, rule number 6, which is don't take yourself so damn seriously. I think I do that. I think I fall into that pattern. I live in that prison, that things have to be so serious. And so that was one of the limiting beliefs that I think about a lot, and throughout my day, I'll remind myself of rule number 6, and I can put a smile on it and relax.
Yeah, that was a good rule. That's especially for, the first violinist, concert master, conductor, the people who need that check. Yeah, there was one section that said focus on contributing rather than the success, and I think that dovetails perfectly into that idea of don't take yourself so seriously. It's not all about you, right? You can, if you just allow yourself to be fully present and you're not thinking about, how is what I'm doing now going to help me get my next job that's going to be better, right? If you instead say, you know what, you guys around me, you are all that matters right now. I'm going to, give you 100%. I'm going to respect you, give you the autonomy to do what you need to do. That's when the magic happens. And I just really like all of these different practices and how they really fit together so well. And if everyone could do them, we would have vastly different orchestras, vastly different business entities, right?
And that's what I'm wondering about. Like, hearing you speak to this, you've participated in so many orchestras and so many performances throughout your life, and I would love to hear. What? First off, what if you had read this book 15 years ago? Would it have had an effect on you? And the other question is, what memories come to mind when you're listening to this book and hearing certain topics like leading from any chair, or hearing about the music, and I'm wondering what does that bring up for you?
Oh, a lot. Music is such a way to grow personally. Just even from practicing your instrument by yourself, right? Like, I think a lot of people maybe don't spend the time to be alone with themselves and their own thoughts. And then as you're working at something, you sit down, you try to play a passage, it doesn't work. Nobody is able to successfully play what they want the first time. And usually it takes an hour or so, maybe, right? And in that time, you are learning how to work with yourself and get yourself to where you want to be, and fight these struggles of, I'm not good enough, or, why can't I play this? What's wrong with me? You have all of these mental challenges to work through. And then you add, playing with other people, then you add the social and emotional state, right? And so, not everyone's going to get along great in orchestra, and that happens a lot. And, it really is up to you to bring the best version of yourself into a performance and into a rehearsal. And it's so easy to, I've mostly played in community orchestras. We would rehearse, I think, Tuesday, Thursday nights at like 7:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. And it's so easy to just be completely drained from a busy work day, rushing to eat dinner on the way. You get there, you show up, maybe you're 10 minutes late. It's so easy to have everything go in a way where you show up exhausted and not ready to really give your full self over. And he mentions, and it just made me laugh because it's 100% true, the oboist, right? The first oboe player, he is always there on time. He is always there 10 minutes early. He's got his reeds soaking in the little jar of whatever that is. They got the tuner set up so that way, he knows his A is going to be ready for when the conductor steps on the podium. And when he's ready to give his 3 or 4 A's, that, he's there. He knows that's his job, and he knows that every single note he plays is going to be heard by everybody. Whereas, if you're a cellist or violist, or, in the second violins or first violins, you're with 10 other people sawing away. And if you're not there because, you weren't feeling well, or you had some other engagement, it's easy to just let that be okay, and you get used to it. Whereas he's saying, you owe it to yourself to give a better performance, to treat your colleagues with respect, to be there on time. And that's where it comes in with the leading from any chair. Just because you're not the guy in front, or you're not playing a solo, doesn't mean that you're not important. And it's a perfect analogy for, in the workplace, right? It's a form of cohesive group. You are important, and whether it's visually that way, is is up to you.
Yeah, can you remind me of the example from the book? I think he's talking about one of the orchestra members is able to share her opinion on what could improve the performance of the piece. Do you remember that example?
That was a fantastic example. They're working on Mahler. Mahler is one of my favorite composers, and I haven't been lucky enough to play any of his works. But so I think she's like in the second violin section. I don't remember, but it's a dress rehearsal. She's completely slumped over, and he's conducting. And he's looking over, and he's like, "Why is this lady? She looks like she's depressed. She's not interested. And where's this coming from?" And so finally, during the break, he walks over and says, "What's going on?" And she asks, "Are these your bowings? Like, where did these bowings come from?" And he said, "Well, these are the bowings we used last time," which is pretty normal. You get the copies back, and you have the bowings that were written last time. He says, "Okay, so what's the problem?" And she says, "I can't, with how fast you're pushing the tempo, I can't make the sound that you want." And it turns out that Mahler was her favorite composer, and she was checked out because she didn't want to be disappointed, because she knew that the way things were going, she was so invested in preserving the way she feels about the music that she didn't want to be disappointed again. And only because, I guess conductor Zander took the time to talk to people, to be perceptive and open. He's like, "Okay, so well, he then went back and looked at the passages and relaxed the tempo for those passages, and it just turned everything around. They had a mind-blowing performance. She now felt like she could talk to the conductor, which never happened before, and it really changed the whole dynamic. The string players felt like they could talk to the conductor and give feedback where that wasn't previously available. And I was just thinking, wow, yeah, this is it. It's not, you look over at somebody who looks like they're depressed, and you're like, you don't know what's going on until you ask them. And if you give them the benefit of the doubt and you engage with them, it turns out that the person who looks depressed and checked out could be the most engaged person. And there's just something in the way that you can actually change.
Hearing your story right now, it just reminds me how much I enjoyed this book. It's the combination of these kind of practical, new, possibilities of how we can think combined with the music is so evocative for me. It just brings up all of these feelings of joy and sadness, and being just this tenderness of how we are all together, and that we're sort of this big orchestra. I can't help but start to think and feel just sensitive to that. And I really grateful to be reminded of this, and grateful that you've had such just such a profound musical experience throughout your life. And this book kind of just seems to bring it out on you and bring it all together.
Well, thank you. How about you? Was there one particular practice that struck you the most?
I so many. I think that, I guess giving an A was probably one for me too. I think it's always nice to hear and be reminded that we have that ability to let go of the pressure we put on ourselves, and put ourselves in the future, and work backwards to imagine what we want, and imagine why we are, regardless of what happens in reality. We can put ourselves in the future, and look back and place ourselves in a position of self-compassion.
It's huge. And I think that it helps to start with yourself, because the only person you can compare yourself to is yourself, maybe 6 months ago, right? Because you aren't anyone else. You can't fully understand what's in their head. And once you do that, you can apply it to others.
Yeah, and that was the beauty of those letters that he received. He shared several examples of the students had written these letters to him from the future at the end of the course, and why they deserved an A. And just to hear, so many beautiful examples of why these students think that they earned an A is to imagine themselves compassionately or showing compassion to themselves. It was very beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a fantastic discussion. Thank you, Nick, for being part of Books with Noah.
Yeah, my pleasure. I've really enjoyed this book, and I really enjoyed talking with you about it. And I enjoyed hearing how alive the book is for you as well, Noah. So thank you.
Thanks for listening to Books with Noah. Please visit our website, bookswithnoah.com. You can also find us on YouTube by searching Books with Noah.